Everyone has rules. Some are written in law, some are taught by our parents. Mine was simple. Never, ever play hide and seek with a stranger. It sounds silly, right? A childish rule. But 2 weeks ago, I broke it. And I think I brought something home. It all started at a wedding. Not my scene, not at all. My parents decided it was the perfect venue to parade their 25-year-old daughter in front of what they called quality men. I called them something else entirely. I felt that familiar, heavy resentment, like a prize pig at a county fair, the only child special. My escape came when my mom, thoroughly enjoying the open bar, accidentally introduced me as Lori. My name is Lauren. That was my cue. I slipped away, a wave of relief washing over me as the pounding bass faded behind me. I found a quiet, forgotten sitting room, my sanctuary. I'd been scrolling on my phone for maybe an hour when the door creaked open. A little girl stood there. She couldn't have been more than 7. She had these huge, impossibly blue eyes. She wore a wrinkled light blue dress and shiny black Mary Jane shoes. She just stood there, staring. I figured she was some guest's kid abandoned for the evening. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded. "Do you need me to find your mom or dad?" She shook her head, then pointed a small, pale finger back towards the music. Her expression was so profoundly sad. I felt a real pang of sympathy. I knew that feeling. "Will you play hide and seek with me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. My first instinct was to say no. That old rule echoed in my head. But she looked so lonely. And really, what was the harm? "Okay," I said. "1 round, but you have to promise to stay on this hallway. Deal?" She nodded, a quick, eager little motion. I turned to the wall, covering my eyes. 1, 2, 3. I peeked through my fingers. I saw her little blue dress swish as she darted into a small library. 7, 8, ready or not, here I come. I made a show of it, checking behind potted plants. I headed into the library. It was a small room, not many hiding spots. I checked under the desk. Nothing. A little knot of worry tightened in my stomach. Had she broken the rules? And then I turned. She was standing perfectly still in the deep shadow behind the door. I hadn't even seen her. She was just there, those blue eyes fixed on me, unblinking. "Found you," I said. The moment I spoke, she moved. She didn't run away from me. She darted past me, a blur, and slammed the library door shut. I heard the distinct, chilling sound of the key turning in the lock. She'd locked me in. My heart jumped into my throat. "Hey!" I yelled, rattling the knob. "Hey, open the door!" This wasn't normal. This wasn't right. I fumbled for my phone, my hands trembling. Before I left, I found the wedding planner. I told her about the girl. The woman looked at me with pure confusion. "I'm sorry, miss. The wedding is adults only. There are no children here." The drive home was quiet. I told myself she must have been the daughter of a staff member. That was the only explanation. I pushed it out of my mind. I live alone in a small converted farmhouse. It's old, it creaks, and on windy nights, it feels alive. The silence was a constant, heavy presence. A few nights later, I was heading upstairs to bed. The only light was the faint blue glow of the moon. I reached the bottom of the stairs and I froze. There was something wrong with the living room window. The curtains? Something was disturbing them from behind. Two pale, vertical lines were visible. Not lines. Legs. My breath hitched. I couldn't move. It's a trick of the light, the shadow from the tree. With a trembling hand, I flicked the light switch. The room flooded with light. The curtains hung perfectly straight. Nothing. I let out a breath, my heart hammering. My imagination. It had to be. I marched over and yanked the curtains back just to prove it. There was nothing there but my own reflection, pale and wide-eyed. I told myself that was the end of it. It wasn't. 2 nights later, I was late for work. I was rummaging through my closet looking for a specific blouse. I pushed aside a stack of sweaters, and there they were. Mary Jane's. Those shiny, patent leather shoes, and above them, the pale, skinny ankles of a child. She was in my closet. I screamed and stumbled backward, falling onto the hardwood floor. I scrambled away, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't imagine this. This wasn't in a dark room from 20 feet away. She was right there. I saw the texture of the leather, the pale skin of her calves. I stared at the closed closet door for a full minute, my entire body shaking. Finally, I found the courage. I crept forward, grabbed the knob, and wrenched the door open. Nothing. Just my clothes, my shoes, my hanging dresses. I shoved my hands through the garments, feeling for a small, solid body. I felt nothing but empty air and fabric. That's when I knew I needed help. Not an exorcist, a therapist. Dr. Evans was a kind woman with a calm, rational office in downtown Poughkeepsie. I told her everything. The wedding, the girl, the things I was seeing. And you've had a lot of recent life changes, she noted, her pen poised over her notepad. A breakup, moving into your first home alone, that's a tremendous amount of stress. It is, I agreed, desperate for her to have the answer. And you mentioned you and your partner broke up due to disagreements about children. I shifted in my chair. It was more final than a disagreement. I can't have children. I said it flatly, a fact I'd long since accepted. It was a deal breaker for him. Dr. Evans nodded, a look of understanding crossing her face. It was a look I knew well. Pity. I see. So you're seeing a child around your home after your partner left you because he wanted children and you couldn't have them. And this all started at a wedding, a very potent symbol of family and future. She made it sound so neat, so logical. She prescribed me something for anxiety and suggested I join a book club. I left her office feeling more alone than ever. Her rational explanation felt like a door slamming shut, trapping me inside with whatever this was. I couldn't go back to that house, not that night. I called my parents. Can I stay with you for a few days? Their house in Wappingers Falls was the opposite of mine. It was warm, bright, and full of light. The smell of my mom's cooking, the sound of my dad's old records, it was a blanket of normalcy. I felt silly. Of course it was stress. Of course it was in my head. I felt safe. That night, after my parents went to bed, I was downstairs getting a glass of water. The kitchen was dark, lit only by the soft glow of the stove light. I opened the cabinet to get a glass, and she was there. Crammed into the narrow space, curled into a horrifying, impossible contortion. Her head was bent at an angle, her blunt bangs hanging over her face. The blue dress was wrinkled around her. I slammed the cabinet door so hard the dishes inside rattled. I screamed, a raw, primal sound of pure terror. My parents came thundering down the stairs. "Lauren, what is it? What's wrong?" my dad demanded, his eyes wide with alarm. "She's in there, in the cabinet." I was pointing a trembling finger, unable to look away. My mom and dad exchanged a glance that said, "This is it. She's finally lost it." But my dad, to his credit, walked over. He slowly opened the cabinet door. It was full of plates, mugs, a box of tea. Nothing else. "Honey," my mom said, her voice soft and careful, "there's nothing there." "I saw her," I whispered, tears starting to stream down my face. "The little girl from the wedding, with the blue dress and the Mary Janes. She's here." The look on their faces changed then. The concern didn't vanish, but it was joined by something else, something darker, a shared, unspoken knowledge. They didn't say I was crazy. They just got me upstairs and into my old childhood bed. With its glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, my mom sat with me until my breathing slowed. I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I knew, the room was pitch black. The little nightlight shaped like a starfish had gone out. And I was not alone. A small, dark shape was sitting on the end of my bed, her back to me. The silhouette of her blunt haircut was unmistakable. My blood ran cold. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. Then she spoke. Her voice was not a child's whisper. It was a dry, ancient rustle, like dead leaves scraping across stone. "You broke the rules." I tried to speak, but my throat was sealed shut with fear. "You looked for me. You ended the game too soon." She began to turn. It wasn't a smooth motion. It was a series of jerky, unnatural movements. And her face was wrong. Those blue eyes were now pools of absolute blackness set in a mask of twisted, malevolent glee. She scrambled across the bed toward me, faster than anything I'd ever seen. Her small, cold hands shot out and clamped around my forearm. It wasn't the grip of a child. It was a vice of iron. A searing, burning pain shot through my arm, and I screamed. She leaned in, her void-like eyes inches from mine. Her breath smelled of damp earth and old stone. "It's my turn to seek," she rasped. The bedroom door flew open. Light flooded the room. My mom stood there, her face as white as a ghost. The thing on my bed was gone, but the pain remained. I looked down. On my forearm were 4 perfect, blistering burns, like fingerprints from a hand heated in a furnace. My mom didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't tell me it was a nightmare. She just walked slowly to my bed and sat down, her weight making the old springs creak. She looked ancient, burdened by a secret she'd carried for a lifetime. "Lauren," she said, her voice trembling, "there's something I never told you." I just stared at her, cradling my burning arm. "When I was pregnant with you, I was pregnant with twins." The world seemed to tilt sideways. The other baby, she didn't make it. It's called vanishing twin syndrome. You absorbed her." She was crying now, silent tears cutting paths through her makeup. When you were born, I was so angry. I was grieving in the hormones. I wasn't in my right mind." She took a shaky breath, unable to look me in the eye. "A few nights after we brought you home, I had a dream. It was so vivid. A dark figure was standing in the corner of the nursery, and it was holding the hand of a little girl with brown hair and blue eyes. The figure spoke to me. It said, 'Both can live. 25 years for the first. 25 years for the second.'" And in my grief, in my madness, I said yes. The number echoed in the silent room. 25. I'm 25. The wound on my arm throbbed in time with my heartbeat, a constant burning reminder. You broke the rules. You ended the game too soon. It's my turn. The game isn't over. She's still seeking, and I have to find a place to hide where she will never, ever find me. But I don't think such a place exists. So, remember my rule? The one I told you about at the beginning? The one I broke? It's not a rule for children. It's a rule for everyone. Some games you just don't play. Because you never, ever know who you're really asking to come out and play with you, or what you might bring home.
You know that feeling when you walk into a room and the conversation just stops? That heavy, awkward silence that tells you you've interrupted something? I moved into an apartment that felt like that every single day. Only I wasn't interrupting a conversation. I was interrupting something else. Something that had been there long before me. And it did not like being interrupted. My name is Leo. And for 6 months, I shared a 2-bedroom walk-up in Chicago's Wicker Park with a ghost. And not the kind that moans and rattles chains. The kind that pays rent on time and has a serious problem with passive-aggressive roommates. It all started out so normal. My friend Mason and I found this place. It was old. The kind of building where the stairs groaned under your weight and the windows rattle every time the L train passes. But it was cheap. And for 2 guys in their early 20s working freelance gigs, me as a sound editor, him as a graphic designer, cheap was the only thing on the menu. The first sign wasn't a sign at all. It was a sound. Mason came out of his room one Tuesday looking like he'd been through a war. Dude, were you pacing the hallway last night? Like, after 3 a.m.? I hadn't. I'd been dead asleep. We blamed the neighbors, we blamed the pipes, we blamed the stress of being broke. But the sounds didn't stop. Footsteps in the hallway when we were both on the couch. A soft, rhythmic knock, knock, knock on the wall behind my bed, like someone was politely asking to be let in from the other side.
Then the smell found me. It always came around 3:17 in the morning. A wave of pure, cold dread would wash over me, waking me up a split second before it hit. And then it would come, this cloying, suffocating mix of old lady perfume, like lilacs and dust, and something wet underneath it, something rotten. It was the smell of a forgotten funeral home. Mason never smelled it. It was only ever in my room. He thought I was going crazy. Maybe I was. He lasted 4 months. He packed a bag, said he was moving in with his girlfriend, and basically sprinted out of the building. He left me with the full rent and a silent, ticking time bomb of an apartment. I was trapped. I couldn't afford to break the lease. So, I got desperate. I thought maybe the activity was tied to my room. Maybe Mason's old room was safe. The first night I slept in there, I had the most vivid dream of my life. I was in our bathroom. The light was flickering, and the mirror was cracked. I was holding a shard of that glass, and I wasn't myself. I was calmly, methodically dragging the sharp edge across my own cheek. Over and over. I wasn't in control. I was just a passenger, watching the horror show. I woke up gasping, my heart trying to escape my chest. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn on the light. The dream felt less like a dream and more like a memory. or a preview. That's when the apartment really woke up. Loud bangs that shook the walls, the toilet flushing by itself, the bathtub faucet turning on full blast at exactly 2:47 a.m. Every single night. But the night I truly broke, that was the night of the television. I just finished a brutal editing session. I was exhausted. I collapsed into bed in Mason's old room and turned on the small TV on the dresser. It was some old black and white movie. I turned it off with the remote, placed the remote right on the nightstand next to me, and passed out. I was jolted awake by blaring, frantic audio. The TV was on. Not just on, but tuned to some obnoxious bright cartoon, the volume cranked to max. The clock said I'd only been asleep for half an hour. I groaned, figured I'd slept-thumbed the remote, turned it off. And this time I got up and placed the remote on the dresser across the room. There. No way I'm hitting that by accident. I fell back asleep and was woken again. This time it wasn't cartoons. It was the sound of a party. Murmuring voices, the clink of glasses, laughter. It sounded like it was coming from right inside the room. The TV was on again. This time it was an old film, a dinner party scene. The remote was no longer on the dresser. I scanned the room with my phone's flashlight. It was lying perfectly in the center of the floor, directly between me and the bedroom door, as if it had been placed there. My blood went cold. I walked over to the TV, my legs feeling like rubber. The volume was set to 100. I turned it off at the set, and that's when I saw it. On the screen, just before it went black, was a menu. It said HDMI 3 in the corner. It was set to an input for a DVD player. I didn't own a DVD player. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat on the couch in the living room, every light in the apartment blazing. And at 4:13 a.m., as if on a final, cruel schedule, the kitchen sink faucet turned itself on full blast. I was out 2 days later. I left behind furniture, books, a lot of my stuff. I didn't care. It was a ransom I was happy to pay. I told the landlord there was a severe mold problem. He didn't argue. When I saw the new tenant, a guy about my age, touring the place, I almost said something. But what do you say? Hey, by the way, the third tenant is already taken and she's really possessive. He'd have thought I was crazy. So I let him walk in. Sometimes now, in my new, quiet apartment on the other side of the city, I'll jolt awake at 3:17 a.m. My heart will be pounding, and for just a second, just a split second, I'll catch the faintest scent of lilacs and rot, and I'll hear the distant rattle of a pipe. And I wonder if I ever really left at all, or if I just gave that thing in the apartment a new piece of me to hold on to, a new connection. I didn't just break the lease. I think I left a part of myself behind as a down payment, and it's still waiting for the rest.